Is Space Waves the first feature screenplay you've written?
Yes. Wrote it when I was 21. And before that, I had only written, I think, a 9-page script before. And so I was just like, all right, let's do a feature. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I mean, I think that's what you have to do is, as a filmmaker, is just push yourself to do harder things. And it's kind of funny that when the producer and I started this project, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to make a feature. And he said something I'll never forget. He was like, dude, nobody's ever ready to make their first feature. And that was great advice. You know, we're never ready. It's something that you choose to just go for, you know, and as you do it, you know, that's the proving grounds, you know.
And you met your producer at Biola University?
Correct. Yeah.
Nice.
In a summer class of photography. 2017, we were the only two guys in the class. And he was also a film major. So I'm like, oh, awesome, you know? So that was great.
What gave you the confidence to know that you could do this story? You'd had the image in your mind for, sounds like many years, of the tower.
Yeah. What gave me the confidence to do it was just, I had made like huge skateboarding epic videos before. So I had worked on a couple of skateboarding videos for a year, and then one of them was 2 years. And both of those projects were like over an hour long. So they were huge projects. And, you know, I was filming and I had the vision, I was the mastermind. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have this for the intro, and then I'm gonna do this and this and this and this. And I was always gravitating towards big projects. And so my roots as being a skateboarder, growing up, the videos I watched were all about like skateboarding teams it was a close-knit team, and they would make videos. And so then like each skater would have like a full video part, which would be like 3 minutes of their skating. And it would be like a very structured thing. And then as the internet continued to grow and everything, that kind of full-length skate videos sort of died down, because then it became like, oh, skateboarders would just film their own part and then just release it online, and so skateboarding became less of a community vibe for the skateboarding videos, and that was something that really bothered me, and I always wanted to be a part of these projects where it's like, oh, there's a group of guys and we're all working towards a collective goal. It's not just like, oh, this guy's making his own video part and this guy's making his. It's like, I want to bring people together for a common purpose and a common goal. And so in high school, I was making these skate videos, and I was always, you know, grabbing all my different friends who were skaters, and then a couple of my other friends who weren't skaters. And I was like, hey, you should jump out of a moving car for my skate video, or you should jump off this building. Or we're at this one party and I was like, hey, I'm going to film you, like go up in front of the crowd and like rip your shirt off and stuff. And like just trying to be as wild and as fun as possible. And so I would make these skate videos in high school, and they were, like I said, big, like over an hour plus long, like skateboarding epics, you know? And so that was always my mindset. And when I got to film school, I really didn't like short films, because every time I was making a short film, I'm like, well, this is just gonna be forgotten about, or this isn't, you know, it's not big enough, whatever. And I'm always thinking so big. And so I made a handful of short films, and they went pretty well. And I'm definitely thankful I had the opportunity to make short films and to learn, because I think short films are really great for learning and experimenting and stuff. But then it came to a point where I just didn't want to make shorts, and I wanted to make the big project. And so I just, you know, grabbed all my friends and was like, hey, I'm trying to make this big movie, trying to make Space Waves. And just brought everyone together. And yeah, I mean, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we just had a dream and we pursued it, and it worked out. I'm very happy with it. Yeah.
Did anybody say, don't make your like dream project, like practice on another feature first?
No, no one said that, but people always did say, don't make a feature in general. I mean, I mean, most people that tried just fail, you know. It's so insanely hard. And, you know, I don't know if I would have gone through it had I known it would have been a 5-year process. You know, that's like just such a commitment. It's so much time, it's so much work, it's so much money invested. So if you are going to do a feature, I say like just go do the feature that you have burning deep inside of you that you have to make, you know. And I always like to say to write the movie you want to see within the parameters of the story you need to tell.
Can we talk about the beginning process of writing the screenplay?
Yeah, I mean, the beginning process way back in 2017 was just, I spent the summer kind of just reflecting on my growing up and trying to pick out the significant moments that I felt like really illustrated the story. So that the argument scene in Space Waves, that was a moment that kind of, I didn't necessarily have that argument with that friend face to face, but all of the things said and done in that scene were just kind of a collection of thoughts and feelings and things that we had gone through. And so I was like, oh, this feeling or this thing that he said or I said, whatever, I'm gonna grab all these different pieces, try to fit them together in this scene or that scene. And then also it was just like, you know, the first half of Space Waves is all about just the fun and the adventures and stuff. And so I figured, okay, let me just reach back into my mind and grab some of the fun and the adventures that me and my friends had while growing up. And so I would put those into the film. And it was also just one of those things where it's like, hey, what do I want to see? How about we have a flash mob incident? Or how about we have the characters wandering through the forest looking for a phoenix statue, and then it ends up being a chicken, and like just kind of being fun and being random. And the producer and I would just bounce wild ideas off of each other. And this was a movie that thrived on just, yeah, the wildness and the randomness, and just it's got a very like specific brand of comedy and just a brand of fun that we really like.
So you were in college at Biola in
Yes.
2017. Did you miss home? Is that what had you thinking about high school?
No, well, I'm a very nostalgic person, so I think about the past a lot, whether that be to analyze it and to learn and grow from it, or because there's just kind of a comfort in the past because it's known, whereas the future is just completely unknown. But like in the past, there's a lot of beautiful memories, there's a lot of painful memories, and there's just a lot to digest there. And I'm a very sentimental person, so I like to take a lot of photos, take a lot of videos, journal, and all that kind of stuff.
How did you structure the writing of the movie?
So the way I structured the movie was that I wanted the first half to be more of the comedy side, because Space Waves is like a comedy drama. So the first half is very comedic, very fun. It's all daytime. And then the second half is very dramatic and moody, and it's all nighttime. And kind of the fun isn't nearly as present. And so that juxtaposition really serves the movie well, because the first half has so much content of like the podcast and all this explosive energy, and the pacing is really fast. And there's just all this stuff going on, and like constant, you know, funny one-liners, and just a lot of jokes and a lot of things happening kind of rapid fire. And then the second half, there's a real absence of the podcast. And so you feel that absence. And so then it's just kind of Marvin, the main character, on his own dealing with things. And it's like, oh, well, where's his best friend, Joey? Where's the podcast? It's not really there anymore. So who is he and what is he without the podcast and without his best friend? And so another thing we did was put a bunch of podcast narrations in the first half of the film. So as the scenes are happening and stuff, you'll hear the Space Waves podcast just kind of overlaid over some of the scenes and stuff. And so then, like I said, the second half of the movie, that is totally gone. And so it really is a big contrast. And so the second half of the movie feels much different than the first half. And I think that really just helps drive the point home and helps us communicate the message better, that like, what do you do once you lose your best friend? Because it really is such a different vibe, you know, the first half to the second half.
And his purpose too, right?
Yeah.
Because the podcast stops.
Yeah.
I don't want to give spoilers away.
I mean,
but
yeah, it's you know, halfway through the film, the podcast does stop. And so that is the main kind of one of the main themes in the film. It's like, what do you do when your friends are going separate ways? And the thing you worked for and, you know, poured your life into is no more, or it's at a standstill, or it's at a pause, you know, who are you then? And so the main character, Marvin, just had his whole identity wrapped up in the podcast and in his friendship with Joey. And when that's not going right and that's not nearly as present in his life anymore, yeah, he's got a lot of thinking to do, and he's got a lot of pain that he's dealing with. And so the second half of the film really just goes through and shows all of that.
Did you give all of the characters arcs?
Tried to, yeah. I think so. I mean, Duke Skylander has a really great arc. He's the third character, and he's a character that you don't necessarily think has much depth to him, because he's very much kind of the comedic relief, and he's kind of the, you know, the third wheel in the buddy comedy, whatever. And so he's making his magnum opus like skate video called Hourglass Existence. And at the beginning of the film, you just think, oh, this guy is, you know, he's just this wild, ridiculous character. But then in the second half of the film, you see that he's actually very insecure, and he's like, oh man, I'm not sure if anyone's gonna come to my film premiere. I don't even know if my film is good enough and stuff. And then Marvin, the main character, is able to come in and be a good friend to Duke, you know, and so he's able to be that good friend, even though he feels like he doesn't have that good friend into his own life. So we tried to give a character arc to Duke, and we tried to give character arcs to all the different characters. But yeah, it's kind of a tough balancing act, just in general. But I think we did pretty well with it.